So Trump isn't deranged for wanting war with Venezuela. In fact, that might be the most traditional thing he's done since taking office, because the US has been trying to steal Venezuela's oil for over 100 years, since it became known that Venezuela had the world's largest proven oil reserve. And it has actually been official US foreign policy for more than 20 years to try and destroy the Venezuelan government and steal the Venezuelan people's oil. In 2002, the US came close to succeeding. The Bush regime, in cooperation with the Venezuelan Business Federation and bribable elements of the Venezuelan military, captured the beloved Venezuelan socialist president Hugo Chavez and installed a right-wing dictator called Pedro Carmona, whose first order of business, and you're not going to believe this, was to privatize Venezuela's oil and give it to US corporations. But the Venezuelan people saw the coup for what it was, an attempt by the United States to steal Venezuela's resources and oil, and a massive uprising, general strike, and loyalist members of the military reversed the coup, freed Chavez, and Carmona was forced to flee to the US. Now you might be thinking, wait, what? Why have I never heard of this before? Well, that's because immediately after this, the US media started talking about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and the US went off to fight a different war for oil that made everyone quickly forget about the coup in Venezuela. In 2017, the US empire's covetous eyes once again turned to Venezuela, and sanctions were launched against the country. Venezuelan oil was forbidden to be traded with US companies and associates, and the US stopped imports into Venezuela, including food and medical supplies. This collapsed the Venezuelan economy and directly led to the deaths of more than 40,000 people. But that was the whole point. These sanctions weren't there just to cripple the Venezuelan economy, it was intended to collapse the entire Venezuelan society. By turning Venezuela into a failed state, it would make the subsequent invasion and stealing of oil much easier for the United States, a plan the US had successfully orchestrated in Libya only a few years earlier. And because repeated coup attempts have failed, sanctions have failed, and the smearing of Maduro's reputation has failed, the US has decided to hell with it, and they're now just planning to invade Venezuela, using lazy excuses like taking out imaginary narco-terrorists, whatever that means, while the US drone strikes innocent fishermen and hijacks Venezuelan oil tankers, trying to provoke Venezuela into retaliation so the US can use it as an excuse to declare war. But Venezuela will not be broken. If the US invades, it will be the graveyard of the United States empire, just like how Gaza became the graveyard of international law. And since Venezuelans are now rushing to get armed, trained, and join militias, vowing to fight a guerrilla war to the death for their survival and sovereignty, a long protracted war is unlikely to break Venezuelan society. But it might just be the straw that breaks the back of US society. Anyway, if you want to hear the long version of this story, check out the Triploid podcast episode 19, Venezuela and the Curse of Oil, out now at all the usual podcasty places. And hopefully that gives you something to think about.